good evening, and welcome to the ESCAPUZZLED podcast, your one-stop shop for all things escape rooms, immersive experiences, tabletop, and virtual escapes. My name is Corey, and joining me today, as always, is my puzzle pal, Helena.
Hello, Corey.
On today's episode, we are joined by the incredible Chris Waters, aka The Architect, the mind behind Constructed Adventures, a company that organizes the most memorable adventures and special days for clients, including puzzles, challenges, secrets, twists and turns to craft the most unique and mind-blowing experience. Chris, I think you have my dream job. That's ridiculous. How are we doing today?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be on this show. I really appreciate the work you guys do.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Nice
you.
to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have easily any sort of escape room or puzzle person's dream job. How did you even go about that? Just super quick.
Yeah. So to build out a little bit of what you said, essentially what I do is people hire me to build out, I like to call them seemingly serendipitous perfect days and wild adventures. When I get kind of an eyebrow raise, I always default to think just a very elaborate treasure scavenger hunt. People hire me to build out a day where the world revolves around someone. A lot of marriage proposals, a lot of decade birthdays. I also have started doing a ton of big corporate group games. There's, very different format, but still a lot of the same feelings. And I just get to travel and kind of create really cool days. And I love it. It's super fun. Also can be very stressful. So I do get a lot of people that are like, this is the best job ever. And I was like, yes, but I did crack a tooth when I was grinding my teeth because I was like so stressed out over an adventure. So, there's some play, right? I don't ever want to paint the picture of like, everything's perfect. You should do exactly this. But I do love it. And it sure beats the heck out of getting yelled at on the phones, which is what my old job was.
Hey, dream jobs come with dream consequences as well. So
Always.
I did say earlier, I think this guy has my dream job. I'm so jealous of him.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I've done 118 adventures. Most of them are in the United States, but I've done quite a few in other countries or even Hawaii or Canada or, places US adjacent, a couple across the pond in Europe and one in the Bahamas. And man, they're always so exciting.
How many are you doing a year?
I try to do one a month. Sometimes I just came off the heels of doing 2 back-to-back corporate events, one on Tuesday in Chicago for Reddit, and then immediately one the following Tuesday for another big company in San Diego. And the only reason I took it is because I used to live in San Diego and I used to do a giant drunken treasure hunt bar crawl extravaganza to find me on my birthday. The whole thing was a nonprofit fundraiser, but I built out the infrastructure of how this game could work. And so when this company reached out and they're like, we're in San Diego, we want to do a thing in Mission Bay. And I was like, no, you don't. You want to do a thing at Ocean Beach because there's all you want to do is like do some adventures and drink. And if you throw a rock on the main street in Ocean Beach, you're going to hit like 9 bars and then 3 coffee shops and 8 women's clothing stores. And we can use all 9 of those bars and 2 of those women's clothing stores and like 1 coffee shop as stops where I can place actors and interactions and things. And so to circle all the way around, normally once a month, I can't choose when it's somebody's birthday, so I'll always try to work with clients. But if it's a brand new location, I need at least 2 weeks buffer. If it's a location that I'm extremely familiar with, I can probably knock it out in 1, but it's going to take a little bit of a toll on me. So finished it on Tuesday. Wednesday, just laid on my sofa horizontally, staring at my phone and or the ceiling for much of the day. And now my apartment still looks like a grenade of arts and crafts went off, but that's after this podcast.
That's how you know you've had a good time, though.
Yeah, right. I know when you're hungover and you didn't drink anything. Yeah.
I feel like that's my house every time I build an escape room because a lot of the stuff, like I've got a workshop, but it will make its way into my dining room, and I have a huge dining room table that turns.
Yeah, the flat surface.
Yeah,
you got just the surface.
It's a massive flat surface that I can also keep stuff to dry paint on. There's so much paint on my table. Yeah, and I won't get wood shavings in it, which is the main issue in my workshop. But it just looks like a grenade's gone off every time. Like all the puzzle pieces have left my house. The mess hasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm lucky I can get people to kind of fabricate some of the big stuff for me. So it's not all arts and crafts, but there is, this last corporate event had 15 checkpoints. So that means there's 15 individual containers with 15 different types of challenges, or the coins they're giving the players, or the clipboards and the things and all of that. And so they're now been consolidated into like 7 containers, but I have to organize it all and throw it back into the tiny amount of storage I have in my Southern California apartment.
It's not mess, it's memories.
Yeah.
It's all mess.
Yeah, it's all mess, let's be honest. Obviously, here on the ESCAPUZZLED podcast, one of the things that we like to do is our quick fire player profile. This is never ever quick fire, but we'll try and keep it as brief as we can. Obviously, the first thing on that list, as always, is our player stereotypes. In an escape room environment, we find that a lot of people, you can judge their character almost immediately based on how they interact with an escape room and others within said escape room. So, what would you say is your escape room stereotype?
Am I allowed to make like 2 new ones and or a sub stereotype? Because I looked through these.
Certainly. Forever adding to this.
I know. And this might work kind of with the leader, but it's more or less, I like to consider myself like the cheerleader or the inspirer. It is really important to me that everybody has a good time in all facets of my life. And so oftentimes when I'm doing escape rooms, if I'm not doing it with the group of people that I do it with quite a bit, or even if I am, I'm ensuring that people get their hero moment. And then also, I don't know if this is a deeply American thing, because I know you love, Premier League and English football, but I love chanting. And there's something really fun. I strongly recommend anybody to try this. Like, you open a lock and we just start yelling like smart, 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 or like chanting some random thing that has to do with whatever the theme of the escape room is. Like when you solve that puzzle, there's just something so fun about it. So that's my big call to action. So that's the first one, is very much like a cheerleader, just making sure like the vibe is good in the room, because like we're gonna solve it, right? Any well-designed escape room is meant to be beaten in like 45 minutes by a like competent team, and we take hints because we don't care about the ego thing. The other part of my other profile is not the overthinker, I'm the underthinker, and that isn't necessarily like, I feel like I'm a cheerleader and underthinker. It makes me sound like a moron, but it's more or less like, at this point in time, I travel a lot. So I'm in a new area and I'm always going to go on Morty or ask David and Lisa from Room Escape Artists, hey, what's the one room I should do in this city? Right. I'm here, I'm stressed, but I've got a couple friends who could do it. And they give me that room. And when I bring new friends in, they're like, oh, all these things mean something. I'm like, no, this is a well-designed room. It would never be this like complex. It's something much simpler. Like it's a matching, right? We're matching colors, right? We're doing this. They're pointing at things. We're not taking like how many fingers each like action figure has up. No, it's just like he's looking in this direction. So I'm usually the one to kind of bring it back where it's like, I talked to this designer and I know they wouldn't make something this obtuse. Like it's cleaner than you think. So those are my 2 profiles that I created for myself.
I think we're polar opposites.
Yeah. So I know you're the overthinker where you're like, there's a meaning behind this, like the number of lines means something.
I think I want to be a cheerleader. I didn't realize.
Try it. The next time you guys have a big aha moment, just start chanting something for it could just be smart. We do like smart, but it could be anything.
I feel like it needs that big energy release. Like it sort of nulls the tension a little bit.
Yeah. I recently did a bunch of rooms with actually some Sarah Dodd and some people from the UK came over to just blitz every escape room. And one of their friends makes up a new name every single game when he signs the waiver.
Sensational.
That we did Hex Room. It's very much based off B-movie horror where everybody's locked in their own room. That's not really a spoiler, but there is one where you get jumper cables. And of course I make the comment like, do you think maybe you should just like attach them to your nipples? Like, is that what you should do? And then his name, which was Cornelius something, became Cornelius Nips. And then, God, this is going way too far, but I can't stop now. Then like he makes some big solve and we're just chanting like nips, nips, nips. And it's just so funny and it's so much fun. And it makes the whole, like the vibe really great when you're just like finding stupid things to chant. So give that a shot. I strongly recommend it.
You guys deeply scaring games masters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. They knew the moment we came in. They're like, all right, this is the group. How many, Sarah, have you done? 2,700 escape rooms? Okay, like you'll be fine. That's insane.
I used to love when people were like, yeah, we are really good at escape rooms and we do loads of games. And I'm like, brilliant. I'm going to go get the snacks. You guys enjoy yourself. Have fun.
Then you get those people that are like, we're really smart. And you're like, and like, how many escape rooms have you done? And they're like, none. And you're like, okay, so you're going to struggle with this because like being good at puzzles is not being smart helps, but like it's a language, right? It's like music. You don't know how to play piano, and it's not because you're dumb. It's because you never played piano before. And so it's the same thing with rooms. So I get and this will be probably later in the podcast, but I get people that reach out that want me to do something for somebody else. And one of the big questions is always like how challenging you want it to be. But we can table that till the end of this player profile that was supposed to be short.
Perfect.
We never are. Don't worry about it. They're always 45 minutes long. Okay, so we've spoken about your stereotype and also getting recommendations for rooms. But if you're looking for your own room, or if you're just in a random city, what's calling your name? What's your favorite theme to go and play, no matter where you are?
Yeah. So my favorite theme is whatever's best reviewed on Morty. But
It's a
to
good thing.
actually answer, and yeah, whatever David and Lisa tell me to go to. My actual theme though is beachy treasure hunt. Very on brand for me, but there's just something about like the tropical. I just did one in LA that was very like tiki hut themed, very fun, and that one just speaks to me so much. I like the lighthearted nature of it. You know, I'll do pirate totems in these different spots of the room every single time. I think they're super fun.
So kind of coming off the ship and you are in a sandy oasis almost.
Yeah, there's going to be some message under like the sandy part at some point in time. So you can either like brush it away if you want, or they'll like project something on the ground where you're supposed to later. And I'm here for it.
That's so
Can't
cool.
imagine the Hoover job for a GM having real sand in a room.
Yeah, I thought about
Yeah.
having real snow. Oh, terrible
Nightmares.
idea.
If you ever make it out to LA, there's a ton of really good rooms. And the room is escaping me right now, no pun intended. I'll try to find it. I know, right? But it was really, really well done. I'm going to look up this room really quick.
Okay.
Because I know. Yeah, of course. It's called Treasure Island, and it's in Brain Games Escape Rooms in Los Angeles, down in San Pedro. And it's one of those rooms that if you're flying out to LA, you know, obviously you're going to do Stash House and Ministry of Peculiarities. I mean, there's so many, right? There's the ladder. But this one is so good, and it was just fun and dumb, and it's very like tiki themed, and it doesn't take itself seriously, but it's really brilliantly well done. Like the pacing, the audio, the set design, the puzzles are really fun. There's a lot more challenges too, not just puzzles, but like dexterity type things that I love. And so strong recommendation.
I don't think I've ever felt relaxed in an escape room. So that concept sounds crazy.
I mean, it's not relaxing. You're still like trying to do it, but you know, just every
Nice
little
beachy
thing's
vibes.
just, yeah. Once again, I think this speaks to the different player profiles that you and I are, Corey.
True.
I'd
very
absolutely love a spa escape room just halfway through. Oh, well, we're going to stop here so you can have your 15-minute massage, and then you'll do a couple more puzzles, and then we'll stop and you'll have a facial. And I'm like, yes, I would like
Man,
to do
you'd love my adventures. Most of my adventures have some type of big pause.
Yeah.
People, they reach out, they're like, we want an 8-hour day. And I'm like, do you? It's kind of like when people go to Disneyland and they're like, we're going to get here at 8 a.m. and we're going to leave at midnight. And then by 1 p.m., you're kind of ready to go back to the hotel and nap for 2 or 3 hours. And the smart families will do it, but other families will be like, no, we're just going to be angry at each other for the next 8 hours because they stretch so thin. And so, yeah, especially with a Immersive adventure, 100%. I mean, we need to make sure that they're changed and dressed. You know, if I do one in New York City in the middle of the summer where they're robbing around the whole time, like we don't want to get her to the finish line and she's just like gross and sweaty and in a tank top and athletic shorts. And she's like, this is not how I want to look for this moment right now. So yeah, those breaks are important.
It's like you've thought of literally everything.
That's what a lot of my job is, just be like, okay, how can all these things go wrong? And then how can I mitigate that risk? I've got my list of my rules for adventures, and the number one rule is mitigate risk. And it's so important because, what was it, Mike Tyson gets credited for that quote of everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And I do a lot of consulting and a lot of help with people that are trying to build these IRL events everywhere. And everyone has this idea, but like, this is exactly how it's going to go. And I'm like, no, it's going to turn sideways in the first 5 to 10 minutes. Be ready for it.
You are about to receive a lot of metaphorical punches that you are not expecting.
Yeah, I've got a great story. Let's get through it. We're so close to getting through this player profile.
Now, on the flip side of your favorite theme, are there any themes that you tend to avoid or any least favorite?
So I used to say horror. I don't like being scared. I don't like scaring people. I was emotionally blackmailed into playing a game called Project Minotaur in Los Angeles recently.
Gotta be done now. Gotta be done.
Yeah, it was really fun. I really liked it. So I'm not super against the more thrilling games, but horror is like the least favorite, where it's like, I just want to go be happy and have fun and like solve these things and feel like a champion. I don't need horror. I also tend to, once again, my least favorite are poorly reviewed games on Morty and games that people tell me to avoid. But, you can kind of see it where it's like, you see a lot of like Da Vinci themed rooms where it's like, this is brutal. And you're like, no, this is just poorly designed. Like when you say 20% of people, and I feel like we like to complain about rooms that are too hard or like rooms where puzzles don't make any sense, but it doesn't exist anymore. It's like those rooms don't exist, right? The rooms where it's just like an Egyptian tomb with Sudoku doesn't exist anymore because like it was a bad room and it didn't make it. And it's been refreshed. Maybe it does, and I just haven't played it. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like those types of least favorite rooms, just capitalism sorts itself out, apparently.
Oh, every now and again, I'll book a game, and I'm like, how is this game still going? There's so much going on. And it's normally because there's one, especially in the UK, there'll be like one escape room per city, in some like more rural places, and then you're like, oh well, I guess this makes sense.
That's it, right? It's the only bowling alley, so when there's no competition, you know. But escape room is one of those where it's like you can do it or you can't. It's so difficult what you're competing with as far as entertainment. Where like in the palm of my hand, I can be entertained for hours, whether it's TikTok or Marvel Snap or Hearthstone or phone calls or podcasts or books or Reddit or all this. And so it feels like there should be a certain threshold for like quality. Apparently, the threshold is relatively low in small towns.
Oh, absolutely.
And so is the ability to use technology, apparently. So it's fine, it balances.
Yeah.
So this is a weird question for the everyday person, but what is your favorite kind of lock?
From a playing standpoint, anything RFID, tech behind the scenes, not tech like hitting you in the face. There's something really nice when, you know, something all comes together and it triggers and a little sound goes and you hear this thing, you know, pop open or a chime or a light beams down where you're supposed to go next. That's really nice. From a creator standpoint, the Justin Evans Cryptex is like an absolute game changer. I'm lucky enough where, you know, what I do is essentially one shots. So I can do the $50 Cryptex from Amazon, which will hold up for one person probably, right? If it's an escape room, you're going to burn through those things so quick. The Nevins Cryptex is just so gorgeous and so sturdy and so beautiful that it can be kind of the linchpin of the entire event, right? It's big enough to house a wedding ring. So I've done plenty of proposals where like they collect all 5 symbols or all 5 letters or whatever we program the Cryptex to be and open it and the ring is inside. And then that creates this great, beautiful thing that sits on their mantle that's like whatever the color, that's their favorite color or anything like that. It's also, you know, so big that just like you could drop it and it will be fine. Funny enough, or if you do ever, this is such a me unique thing. If you ever travel with Cryptexes, you have to take it out because TSA or whatever, the airport's going to think it looks like a pipe bomb because it's a metal pipe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made the mistake the first time I was traveling internationally to do an event using that Cryptex is I had it. Justin was like, bring it in your checked bag. They're going to absolutely like rip apart your checked bag. So it's like, I'm going to bring it in my backpack. I didn't think to take it out of my backpack and put it and open it and put it in its individual tray. And so I'm at my flight and it goes through and the woman's like, I don't want to open that bag. And I was like, I'll open it. She's like, hell no, you're not opening it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like big, tall, white guy, pipe in my backpack. Like I get it. And then I'm like, I'm an event planner. It's an ornate, beautiful puzzle box. Like it's in the bottom front pocket. That's why it's there. Grab it. And then of course they get it and they're like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, I know, sorry. So now I make the point where like I have it, I open it, I put it in its own bin and then send it through. And it gets flagged every time, but it's a lot smoother of a process now than when it's tucked away in your backpack.
First world problems.
I feel like if that was actually in the TSA information that you have before you go through, escape rooms had made it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's tricky with those Cryptexes too, because, you know, anytime I'm doing an event that's out in the real world, sometimes I'll give them a Cryptex and the whole point is like, you're going to get this thing open, right? So like everywhere you go, you're solving things and you're getting like one letter or one piece of it that eventually opens it. But I have to factor in places that have like the metal detectors or they have to put the tray. Like when I went, I did one in Paris and we went to, I hope I don't mispronounce it, but Sacré-Cœur, which is the gorgeous cathedral up on top of the hill. They needed to go in and there was a statue that they needed to grab some piece of information off of. And I realized like, oh, you have to go through, they check your bags. And I don't know if they check the bag that the Cryptex, but like, sir, you need to open that. And he's going to be like, I can't. And I'm like, all right, we're going to rough you up on the way out, right?
Oh my goodness. I would not
So
even
that's why
think about that.
So I ended up hiring a driver to take them around for the second half of the day. Plus they're in Paris for a day. And so they're just walking a lot and they're doing a lot. And having that driver becomes that mobile home base where they can be like, you know, they get some piece of information that's like, leave everything except this. So then they'll run into the issue of waiting in line, getting turned away, having to find the car, having to put the thing back in the car, waiting in line again. And now they're 45 minutes. And so it's those little things to try to make these seamless experiences. Like, so perfect, right? You've got to put a lot of thought in these things because there's a chance that they get up there and they're totally fine. But if they aren't, then the whole thing falls apart. And now you've missed the sunset proposal with the photographer because you're now running an hour late.
I think I just want you to plan a holiday for me by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Oh, they would like to go here, but they don't want to carry any of their shopping. It's fine. We'll just have a car follow them around. And wait it all
Yeah,
out.
like
Brilliant.
half of what I do is game design, but the other half is just event logistics. So much of it. And I get a lot of people that reach out. They're like, I want to do what you do. I love puzzles. I love this. I'm like, okay, first of all, throw out all the puzzles. This might be blaspheming this podcast. The puzzles don't matter. It's the experience.
Wow.
No,
I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight. I hope you know that,
I'll
Chris.
see myself out. Let me rephrase that. The puzzles do matter, but the puzzles are secondary to the day itself, right? Somebody hires me to do a marriage proposal. The most important thing is that the proposee is at the spot where we need them and they had a great day. After that, we have to figure out, okay, where did they go before this, leading them from, you know, the Upper West Side in New York down to Brooklyn, where the proposal is. So here are the stops. And then we figure out what the puzzles and the mechanics are to move them from spot to spot. So it's so much further down the totem pole than like an escape room where it's like the puzzles are paramount. You're doing this for the puzzles. For a lot of people that do my games have been completely blindsided, where all of a sudden they just get like punched in the face by a day. They're at the grocery store and somebody comes up with a wax sealed envelope sending them on this day. So having, you know, the focus on puzzles is not quite there. And not to say I don't. I do focus on puzzles. They're very important. Good puzzle design is very important. But the most important thing is the flow of the day, and how those puzzles create that flow is paramount.
On a super quick side tangent, because we don't have a question relating to this later, have you ever had a situation in which somebody has been given said wax sealed envelope and they've gone, nope, that's weird?
No, never.
Wow,
And
that's...
yeah, well, and there's a lot of planning behind that, right? The first question I ask when I have a potential client is, well, actually, if it's a proposal, it's like, hey, is there a universe where they'll say no? And usually people chuckle and say, no, we've been together for this long. We went to primary school. We opened a dental practice. We are in foster care classes. But if somebody hesitates, then I'm like, how long have you guys been dating? The same thing with this, where there's a lot of prep. You know, somebody will book me, usually it's about 6 months out. And so then I send them a survey that has everything from phobias and allergies to, like, on a scale of the movie Hitch with Will Smith to the movie National Treasure with Nick Cage. How do you want this to feel? And then I talk to the friends and family, and we're double checking to make sure, like, is this something they want? Because some people like us would love this thing. There are people who absolutely would not, and that is totally okay. But just in case somebody is an idealist and they would want this, so they're hiring me for their spouse who wouldn't want it, then it just becomes like, hey, why don't you just give my business card to your spouse and we'll just swap this. I do not do things for somebody who would not want it. I'd rather just not do it.
That's very... what's the word? Yeah, I can't think of the word, but it's nice to hear that you're not willing to just take on money for the sake of taking on money for the sake of running an event for someone.
Yes, and don't get me wrong, money rules. Love making money, love living, food, eating it. Southern California, expensive, but I am very lucky that I'm booked out far enough to where I can be a little bit picky, right? If somebody reaches out and they're like, I will not talk to you if I don't know what the cost of this is going to be. My answer is always just like, hey, it doesn't sound like we're a good fit. Go do an escape room, go do something else. And like, these things are expensive, but I try to keep them reasonably approachable for a human being who has saved for a special occasion. It's tricky because the economy is just kind of bonkers right now, but that's a whole side conversation for a different podcast. But yeah, I don't do horror things because, you know, there's liability in them, especially if we're surprising somebody with a horror thing. And I had a guy that was like, my wife loves museums and art and culture, and so I want a museum heist themed adventure. And I was like, all right, okay. Get on social media, do the stalking, reach out to friends and family, and they're like, no, he wants a museum heist. She wants a limo and mimosas and Friendship and Whimsy. And so I go to him and I say, we're doing a limo and mimosas and Friendship or Whimsy, or I walk. Here's your deposit back. And he was like, okay, we'll do that. And we ended up building a great adventure that was based on their favorite book together, where actors were playing like modern day characters, and at every stop there were friends along the way, and it was really, really nice. And that is just so important.
So, on the flip side of your favorite lock, what would you say is your least favorite puzzle? Whether this is something that you've written into one of your experience days, or whether it's something that you've come across in an escape room, what would you say you're steering away from?
Yeah, anything with heavy math, not a big fan of, and also anything that doesn't make any sense. But as we kind of talked about, it doesn't exist as much anymore in good escape rooms. Everything kind of makes sense.
That's fair. I think people need to listen to this podcast and take note that maths is not something not anyone enjoys.
Not one person's been like, do you know what my favorite puzzle is? Math.
Maths. Yeah, basic addition, maybe, right? Like there's always like maybe adding up, counting. Counting's fine, but past counting, you're like, all right, guys, we can do better.
Just put a better puzzle in. Design a better puzzle.
Yep.
You don't need fractions. You don't need
It's
to
not
work out
difficult anymore. Like,
angles.
throw some money at somebody to design a puzzle for you, and it'll be great. I throw money at people to design puzzles for me all the time, and I love it because I can come up with some great stuff, but sometimes I just can't, and it's really nice to have somebody else do it.
And you get to support the community.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Win-win.
Everybody gets paid.
So when you are playing an escape room, what are your strengths?
It kind of goes with my player profile. My strengths are just I create fun. I like this experience to be as fun as possible. It's really important to me that especially new players get their hero moment of figuring something out, whether or not if I've already figured it out, which I usually haven't. I'm okay if I'm not great at escape rooms. I think I've done like 50, which is probably the all-time low for your guests on this podcast. Like all my friends are like, oh my God, you've done 50. I've done 3. And I'm like, yeah. And then of course I go to like the Reality Escape convention and they're like, 50? Oh man.
You're not in the 2000s?
I know. It's like, I just want to vote for Turpica, but I'm halfway there. Oh my God. I've been ramping up the numbers though. So I'll get there in a year or so. But yeah, it's really just about helping empower everybody to have a good time.
I say that. I've only done 79 apparently, according to Morty. But there's a lot of games I've done that have disappeared now. They don't exist.
Yeah, it's tough.
Morty needs a backdating function just to keep my numbers stum.
That's so funny. I mean, it's like I just listened to Andy. I'm talking to him right now because we're going to get together because we both live in the same city. But that's something that's so important for such a tiny amount of people from just like a business standpoint where it's like, man, I don't think that'll ever really work.
Not worth putting in the man hours. On a super quick side tangent, when we were recording with David Spira, he was like, oh yeah, I've got Chris staying at mine. And I understand he's coming on the podcast. I was like, yep, we're going to have to edit that out. Thanks, David. I was like, this is going out 3-4 episodes before Chris's. So that's not going in, but thanks.
Yeah.
On the flip side to your strengths, what would you say is your weakness in an escape room?
I'll definitely, and this is the same reason why I hate math so much. It's like I'll just kind of push through. I will figure out what needs to be done, and then I will do it wrong. That's such a huge problem of like, oh, this is absolutely how these numbers interact with the lock or whatever. Like, I know it's based on this. This is such a clever thing. This is exactly what they would do. This is what I would do. And then I would like put in the numbers wrong or like realize that there was like one kind of like layup step that needed to be done. And then somebody else takes over and actually solves it, and I just like, oh man, like I just got a little bit ahead of myself. I was so excited that I figured it out that I didn't quite figure it out.
Okay, so if you could build a dream team consisting of you and 4 others, it can be people who are dead, who are alive, who are celebrities, etc. Who would be on your dream team?
Can it be people that I've already done games with?
Certainly, as long as they're somewhat in the public eye, so it's not just Dave from The Office on social media.
100%. This is my flex. 100% Neil Patrick Harris. I've done quite a few escape rooms with him. He is so unbelievably good at escape rooms and also very fun. You know, like there are people that are good with escape rooms and it's like, wow, this really sucks playing escape rooms with them because they just do all the things and bulldoze everybody and tell everybody what to do. But he is both really smart and really good at puzzles, but also, you know, when we play together, it's always like, everybody come over here. I think I figured this out. Okay, this is what I did. Look at this. I did this. Now I'm going to connect these 2 things, and you do it, and then like the like goes, and everybody has a good time. We always take that time away, and so much of it is just the thoughtfulness. You can kind of see a recurring thing with me with like mindfulness and thoughtfulness and just being aware. So he's definitely in there. I'd probably add in Obama. He just seems like he'd be a really
Aw.
fun vibe to play these rooms. I'm trying to think of anybody that I know.
I was half expecting you to hit us with, yeah, I've played with him a few times. You know, at the White House, they've got their own escape room, and we chill out occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite. Man, I wish. God, that'd be amazing. Yeah, so I'd say NPH and Obama. I could probably try to throw in one more. You know, I'm going to throw out Scott Levy from the Immersive Machine. He'd be a good person to bring on the show. He has a really top tier escape room in Phoenix, Arizona, and we play a lot of rooms together, and he's just an absolute delight of a human. So non-celebrity so far, but you never know. And then you get the perfect, in a vacuum, perfect team sizes 4.
100%. I wholeheartedly agree with that, regardless of the size of the room. Any more than 4 is suffocating.
Too much.
So, we've obviously discussed a lot about sort of what you're like in an escape room, what your strengths are, your weaknesses, what you like, dislike, but obviously we've not really gotten into how you got into puzzle design and obviously these incredible adventures that you do. So, what is your origin story?
My origin story kind of rules. It's I talk with other, I'm half artist, half business-y, and such an important thing in business is having an unfair advantage, right? What's your unfair advantage over other podcasts, over other things, over other whatnot? My unfair advantage is, aside from just being super friendly, is my origin story, which is as follows. Are you guys familiar with the website Reddit?
Yes.
Cool. For any listener that isn't, Reddit is an extremely popular website. It is essentially a series of hundreds of thousands of communities called subreddits, and there is a subreddit for everything. I have a subreddit for constructed adventures. There's like 15,000 people, and the whole point is teaching people how to build treasure hunts, right? Here's a recap of this cool thing I did on Christmas morning. Hey, has anybody tried using this thing? Hey, I tried this. You should try this, et cetera, et cetera. There's subreddits for corgi butts, right? Because they have those fluffy butts. There's subreddits for every sports team, for every city, for everything. There's weird subreddits. There used to be a subreddit called Secret Santa. It was the largest international gift exchange in the world. They have discontinued it, but that was the start of my business. I would sign up every year. I would be matched with a giftee somewhere in the world, usually opt to stay within the continental United States. I would have another person who would have me as they'd be my Santa. I would be their giftee. And then you quote unquote stalk that person where you read their comments on Reddit or if they link any social media or anything like that. And you ship them a gift you think they would like. The recommended amount was like $20. So it was not big. Some people would just go way overboard. You guys can probably see where this is going. Some people would get nothing and, you could get rematched. And it was a really wonderful time, right? It was right after Thanksgiving. You got your match and you had like 2 or 3 weeks to do this. So I'd been doing it for years. I'd been given and I had given some amazing, ridiculous gifts. And I am my brother would disagree. I'm very low-key competitive. He would say I'm high-key competitive. I'm never going to like ruin game night. I'm kind of in that ilk of like, hey, you play a game to win, right? If you're not trying to win the game, then why even bother playing? But also, I'm not going to ruin game night by trying to win, right? Like I'm not going to threaten to stab my brother because he like blocked a route in Catan or something like that. It's more important to me that everybody has a good time. That being said, the one place that I'm really competitive is giving gifts. I want my white elephant gift stolen 3 times. I want to have that gift that's like, what do you, like, I didn't know this existed, but I've always wanted it, right? Like that type of thing. So I was always the one going super overboard with Red Secret Santa, spending way more money and just going nuts. So I get matched with my giftee in 2015 and I look at his address and I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he lived in Phoenix, Arizona, 21 minutes away from me. And I was like, oh my God, I have this opportunity to do something really freaking cool for an internet stranger. And so I messaged him on the app. There was like a platform where you could anonymously message like, this is from your Santa, basically saying like, hey, I need you to give me a day where you and the woman in his photo that clearly looked like his girlfriend was. They're now married, by the way. We still keep in touch. I need you to give me a day where you guys are completely available. Saturday or Sunday, either this Saturday or Sunday or the next Saturday or Sunday. He chose the final Sunday before Christmas. And I was like, cool, I just need you to be ready to go at 8 a.m. Had to talk him off the ledge once or twice because he's like, how do I know I'm not going to get murdered and left in the desert? I was like, it's just like not how the world works, right? Like we watch a lot of like CSI and stuff, and it's like people don't do this. And also like if he gets murdered, it'll eventually come back to me. Like we're linked together in this Reddit Secret Santa thing. Like you're fine. Just be cool. 8 a.m. rolls around on the Sunday, knock on the door, and there's somebody there that hands him a century-old suitcase with a bouquet of flowers on the top. Inside the suitcase is a bunch of envelopes with symbols on them, a box with a chain wrapped around it, that essentially sent him on this treasure hunt to find his gift. a treasure hunt date. They went to this statue where there was an envelope in the hand of the statue that had 2 tickets to the zoo, where they decoded a message using the plaques on the different animal pens at the zoo that sent them to a restaurant where the server was like, we've been expecting you, order whatever you want, everything's been paid for. To a mirror maze, where halfway through the mirror maze, somebody came in and was like, I was instructed to give you this, and then like went by them. To, you know, a hike where he had to sing my school's fight song because we went to rival schools, which is very fun. To the library to find a book, to a thing with, you know, all this all over town, finally ending with meeting me, where I slid up his gift, which is just like a nice bottle of champagne in a box wrapped in the basement of this like underground speakeasy beneath a Mexican food restaurant in Arizona. And we chatted, and like understandably he was blown away by it because it was such a big thing for, you know, a $20 gift exchange. And we kept in touch. And so to rewind back, the guy that delivered the suitcase, who's a friend of mine, I took him out to breakfast while the players were at the zoo. He was like, this is an awesome idea. People would pay money for this. You're going to start a business. I'm going to build your website. What's your business name? And I was like, I don't know, Constructed Adventures. He's like, cool, it's available. Grabbed it, built me a website. When my giftie posted his recap of the event, which I can send you guys to Reddit, it just went nuclear. It hit the front page. I got in there, was answering a bunch of questions. Our website got linked in the whole thing. And it actually worked out really well. Reddit has this historical thing of it hates to be advertised to. Nothing is real. Like there is no serendipity in the world, which is like, I get it. There's a lot of astroturfing, but our website was empty. It had a bunch of pictures of Nicolas Cage from National Treasure and a bunch of Lipsum Lorem placeholders in the paragraphs and a would you like to hire me form that they could fill out. And so somebody would be like, wow, this isn't real. This is just a clever marketing. And then somebody would be like, his website sucks, dude. This is not clever marketing. Like this is just a guy. And so that worked out really well. But we got featured in the news as kind of that holiday fluff piece, like internet stranger sends his giftie on a elaborate treasure hunt to find his gift, right? And so it just blew up. And I was figuring out from there, just kind of taking everything, doing adventures all over Arizona and sometimes in California because they're somewhat close. And then eventually got big enough to where I could jump ship, do this full time. And now I travel the world building these treasure hunts for people.
They need to make a film about this.
Again, I need your job.
Or I need to be sent on one of these adventures. It sounds unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People need to up their Secret Santa game at work. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
think that £20 is covering a custom.
It's the
Right.
thought that counts.
Yeah. But that being said, I do have a lot of resources on my website. I have a YouTube channel. I have a thing that'll help encode messages. I have blogs. We have a subreddit. We have a Discord channel. So if you wanted to build something like this on a smaller scale, you absolutely could. Or like a bigger scale. There are plenty of people that do things where I'm like, man, this is professional level. Like you could do this, you know? But they're like, I'm a teacher and I'm going to continue being a teacher, but I'm going to spend half of my waking hours building this elaborate thing for my students or my husband or my wife or whoever. So it's cool to see the communities creating cool things.
Yeah, being in the Discord has been super eye-opening to other people's unique, really cool ideas. There's some awesome stuff gets shared in there. So I'll have that all linked with the Reddit and the recap and stuff like that in the show notes.
I'm new to Discord. I'm exploring at the moment.
There's a learning curve with Discord for sure, and Reddit if you're not familiar with them.
Am I like adding random people who are also escape room people at the moment? I am enjoying it. Been added to a couple of group chats, and I'm like, I don't belong here.
I know there's a funny like imposter syndrome issue with our whole industry, and I kind of always joke that like if you don't have imposter syndrome, you haven't made it yet, right? Like
100%.
people that come in, they're like, I'm the best designer ever, and it's like, are you though? And then you have the people, you know, there's some amazing designers that are so unsure about their work, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever solved. Like, stop it. I want to like roll up a newspaper and be like, no, like you're good and you're not going to do any more work for free. Like, you understand me? Like, this is your rate that you will charge because I will pay you to do this stuff. That's you belong. Everybody's got a spot at the table. And like, even if you're still figuring it out, like that's okay. The first step to being good at something is being bad at it. And like, you have to be bad at it first. And that's just how the world works for 99% of people.
Hopefully that's evident 13 or 14 episodes into the podcast.
Yeah.
It has been
I
a
know
learning curve.
that first adventure that I did, like I look back and it seems really great. Like Mirror Man, it was just so many steps away from disaster at any given time. Where it's like I didn't tell him to eat breakfast, so he didn't eat till like noon, so he had a bit of a headache, right? So that kind of marred the whole day. And then there was just things where it's like he absolutely no business solving this, but he just happened to be really friggin' sharp and figured some things out, right? So there's just like there were so many issues with this thing design wise that like this should have gone wrong, this should have gone wrong, this should like all these things that have now since then gone wrong in other iterations that I just got super lucky didn't just completely train wreck when I did it with him.
So what does the overall process look like for one of your adventures, from just planning through to execution? How have you managed to get so many people engaged and you've managed to plan all of these amazing adventures for people?
Yeah. So the first start is just going to my website and clicking build me an adventure and filling out the form. It'll come into my email. It'll actually, I think it also just immediately sends you to a web page where it's like, hey, just throw it on my calendar, because that's the first thing I'm going to say is we need to hop on a call. And so, my recommendation is to fill it out pretty thoroughly when somebody's like, I want to do a thing for my wife. And then somebody at the same time is like, my wife's the coolest person ever. She does this and loves this and I love this and this is going to be the coolest thing. And they want the same date. Like, who do you think I'm going to want to work with more? Right. And so then we hop on a call and we go over all the potential ideas, because some people reach out and they're like, here's the deal. It's my 30th birthday. I want a big group game. It's going to be on this day at this time in Seattle, Washington. I want to have it start at this bar. I want to have it end at this bar. It's going to be a light Alice in Wonderland theme. There's going to be 25 people. Here's my budget. Go. Other people reach out and they're like, I think I want to propose to my girlfriend and I think I want it to be fun. And we're like, okay, most people are somewhere in between. So it's figuring out what they want. Can we do it? Which the answer is normally yes, right? We're hindered by creativity and budget. And then once we know that this can happen, right? The budget aligns. Like, we don't know exactly what the budget is, but like, as long as that's like, I give them the budget and they're not like, nope. I then send a very in-depth survey. Like I said, the one I talked about it's like 2 or 3 pages. It has the logistics, friends, inclinations. How challenging would you like it? And the next question is, why did you put an 8 out of 10? Because everybody always puts an 8 out of 10 because, asking somebody how challenging you like something is such a weird question because, like, I don't know, challenge is so different from people. Team Palindrome that wins the MIT mystery hunt every other year is going to be very different than like the Johnson family who's deciding to like do this fun romp. An 8 out of 10 for one is not an 8 out of 10 for the other. So figuring that out, then usually there's 1 or 2 more calls. I send a contract and then we kind of sit on it for a while because usually the contract's like 6 months out and there's nothing for me to do this far out. And there's like little things I can work toward if there's, people that I know, or if I have to book a flight or get a hotel, start that. But, if we're going to send him to a restaurant, there's no reason for me to call that restaurant because the person that I talk to probably won't be working at that restaurant in 6 months because that's just how turnover works. And so then we'll passively check in once a month. And then once we get a couple months out, we start to really work on it. I start to reach out to the friends and family, bringing them in. It also depends on like what type of surprise this is. Like, if this is a marriage proposal, I'll have them give me a list of their friends and family and hierarchy of how trustworthy they are, because there's 2 types of untrustworthy people. There's the person that's just like, I'm going to go tell her immediately because I can't help myself. And there's the other person that's just like, I'm absolutely going to post this in the wrong group chat because I'm just not that self-aware. And so depending on how trustworthy they are, we'll reach out to them earlier or later. I've had times where somebody was just scooped up. I had one of my PAs like grab them, scoop them up, take their phone from them and be like, you're coming with us. This person's getting proposed to. No, you can't have your phone. And like bring her to the proposal spot so she can still be part of it, but she would not have been trusted. Right. Then usually 1 to 2 weeks out, I fly out to wherever the location is. I'm on the ground in like a whirlwind of scouting and talking to the businesses and talking to any helpers or actors or friends and family. Basically just wake up every day, go walk or drive around, find the locations, figure it all out. And then the day of, I LoJack the player with some type of GPS tracker. And then I execute the day from start to finish where I am behind the scenes with my team making sure that if they are told to go to this town square and find this statue, there's a wax sealed envelope with their name calligraphed on it in the hand of that statue that was placed 30 seconds before they arrive by the person that's now sitting at their bench just texting on their phone. Everything seems like it's serendipitous, and then when something goes wrong, I am on the ground. I now have X amount of time to fix it, so the players never knew that anything actually did go wrong. And then we run the whole thing. It ends with a proposal or a birthday or a surprise or whatever it ends up being, and then I usually fly home and stare at the ceiling for 24 to 48 hours and start prepping for the next one.
This is some secret agent level, like underground, unknown, so much going on that people just don't see or realize. It's absurd, but it sounds absolutely phenomenal.
Like, have you thought about working for the FBI?
I could probably make more money doing that. Actually, I don't know about that. Yeah,
drawing criminals in with adventures, and then they end up in a prison cell.
Yeah, right. No, I would just do, once again, my rule, only happy stuff, no prisons. It's tricky because like this sounds super opulent, and it is. It's definitely a high cost thing. But it's so funny because, like, as you see with escape rooms, like there's just so much duct tape behind the scenes. One of my favorite things to talk about is like I like trying to create these magic tricks that happen. And I did this great one where this group of guys, it was this guy's birthday. The whole thing was an elaborate icing. I don't know if you guys have icing over across the pond. It's really stupid where you basically trick somebody into drinking a really sugary alcoholic drink called a Smirnoff Ice. Not my style of humor, but the humor's not lost on me. Anyway, these guys used to try to just like elaborately ice each other, and it was somebody's birthday. And so the whole thing was this whole thing. They finished an escape room, and at the end of the escape room, it started the day. And they went through this whole day finding this chest and getting these keys. And he finally gets to a surprise party, which was kind of that was the gift, was surprise party. And then I was there with the final key, and he opens it up, and it's a freezing cold Smirnoff Ice because we'd swapped it out. Like, we got the treasure chest like 25% of the way through, but then we orchestrated a way where the treasure chest would be in the car when they went somewhere. And so right before the final stop, we went in and swapped out the Smirnoff Ices. So there was a cold one, which is this cool magic trick. But that's just really just orchestration. But in the same day, we had them go up on top of this huge hill where there was this observation tower. It was like a astronomy tower, and they had one of those viewfinders you put in 25 cents, right? And you can see really far away. You know, they'd had this satchel that had all these things, including like shooters and a compass and a journal and, you know, like supplies, right, for this adventure. And one of them was like a quarter, and they basically put the quarter in, they put the compass on top, they turned the viewfinder to a certain degree, and they looked in the distance. And there was a guy sitting on a bench, and they looked at him. And then at that moment, like, you know, half a kilometer away, he just turns and waves and like beckons to them. And they lose their mind.
So cool.
And they're like, how did that happen? And the reason it happened is because he had one AirPod in his right ear where they couldn't see. And he was on the phone listening to somebody who was in the bushes, who was like, they see you now, wave. And that's it. Like, that's like, so much of this is just like people hiding in the bushes, right? Like, my work is like 20 to 30% business where I'm doing podcast interviews and I'm doing QuickBooks and I'm talking to clients. And then it's like another 30% of like arts and crafts and like puzzle design. But then like the last like 30-40% is just ding dong ditch, right? It's just like knocking on the door and running. And it's so funny where it's like, I'm getting paid a lot of money right now to like drop this treasure chest and like run to my car and drive away. And I don't know, I feel like a giant child, you know, but I love
Do you
it.
still get like super excited every time you do, like you pull something off and you're like, ha, 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 you have no idea.
And like, it doesn't matter how many I do, every single morning is like the worst day of my life where I'm like, they're going to hate this. This is so stupid. Why would I think they like it? And then of course they like it, because like I'm now comparing this adventure to the 118 ones, right? I'm comparing to the time that I sent people free diving in the Bahamas off an island to find a briefcase weighted to the ground, at the time that I sent a woman to a wild animal park where an otter handed off a clue. And it's like, that doesn't happen every time, but it's hard to compare.
By otters.
Yes, the otter one was amazing. If you check my Instagram, it's on there. There's like this woman in this like pool, and there's a little otter over her shoulder looking at this wax sealed envelope with her, and it's amazing.
I might actually cry. I want that.
As a magician myself, I can thoroughly appreciate all of the little impossibilities that go into making
and
these
like
things. It's so
much of magic is just like you just hired somebody, paid them money to like reverse pickpocket this person in the crowd and put the card
in their pocket.
Right? Like, that's exactly what it is. It's like sometimes the behind the scenes is not as amazing, but
every
Just-
magic trick is not as fun when you know how it's done. It's why I hate when people ask, "Oh, how does it work then?" And I'm like, "You're not gonna like it if I tell you how it works because it's
Yeah, just
the most bland thing ever."
I'm the
Yeah,
other way. I'm like, please don't tell me how that works. I will not be a muggle. Thank you.
I'm in the same boat as you, Lena. I do escape rooms, but there's a musician called Blake Voigt. He's
Blake's
really
phenomenal.
great. Yeah, he's so good.
Over
He's
at
so
Theory
nice.
11. Or he was
Yes.
at Theory 11. He does his own stuff now.
I think he still does Theory 11 stuff too. He just got married. Mazel tov.
Yeah.
But we do escape rooms, and I'm always like, when I brought him over with my brother's fiance, and I was like, hey, she's gonna ask you to do magic. Is that okay? And he's like, listen, if I'm having a bad day and somebody asks me to do magic, my day is better. Like, I carry a deck of cards with me at all times. Like, he is like a geek about this. Like, that's how you have to get to that level. It's like you have to be so neurotic, but also passionate about it to be like the best human being to do magic with like a sheet of paper. But he'd do these tricks, and I'd be like, I never want to know how they are because I just want to believe that you're just like pure magic. Like, I know the logic brain in me is like, there has to be a way this is done, but I am totally fine suspending disbelief and just being a child.
Yeah, all of Blake's work's sensational.
Yeah.
I personally use a lot of his stuff. I know friends that use a lot of his stuff. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, he's great. Love him.
So, obviously, you mentioned there that you've done some absolutely insane things like paying otters to hand off things to clients. But what are some of the most crazy ideas that clients have had themselves for adventure days?
But first, how and what would you pay an otter?
Yeah, it's a lot of fish. 100%. They love fish. But the fun thing with otters is they love new things. And so much of the design was like, okay, how can I orchestrate this otter delivering this thing to this woman? And they're like, well, if you put something new in their toy bin, they are going to pull that out and they're going to bring it in and they're going to show their new friend. And so the otters come out, and Willie, the main otter, comes
that's
in.
so sweet.
And I had an waxed envelope in an airtight container, which, wasn't something they were familiar with. And so he immediately grabs it, holds it over his head, dives in the water, and brings it to her. And so that kind of works out in like having an otter hand off a clue.
Way.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's just like too perfect scenario.
Yeah. So I have some people that give me bad ideas. I get a lot of rich people with a lot of bad ideas, and they're not used to being told no. And I'm just like, no. I had one guy that was like, it's my wife's 25th birthday, and so I want a day with 25 cryptexes. And I was like, no, you don't.
Oof.
Want one. Maybe we could get away with two. But like, by the third time you open the cryptex, you're like, it's like Morse code, right? Where it's like, oh, Morse code. Oh, Morse code. Like the amount of time between those two feelings about Morse code is like
3 seconds.
3 to 5 letters. Yeah. Like very, very thin. And it's the same thing with anything. It's just like having 25 of them because that happens to be the year, like the number of years she's lived is not like, that's not clever. That's not like, we can go deeper. We can do something more thoughtful. But he was so dead set on that I'm like, man, I'll sell you 25 cryptexes, but like, I'm not building this adventure because it's going to suck. So we've had a lot of that, a lot of just like kind of bad ideas. Most of the time I get people that are pretty much like, hey, this is your show. I'll always double check with them where like, when I had, a family in the Bahamas take like a boat out to free dive. Got to make sure everyone knows how to swim and is comfortable in doing this. But yeah, not any like bonkers ideas other than ones that have been kind of nipped real quick. A lot of people want like, oh, I want you to kidnap my spouse. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. They're not signing a waiver before this thing. And so the liability is just astronomical. And if you're wrong about how they would react to this, like it's going to be really bad. And
Nothing like giving trauma as a proposal gift.
Yeah, exactly. Like some people love that stuff, but it's like, go to one of the extreme haunts, sign the waiver, go into shock, go back, like do that. Like there needs to be a certain amount of trust between, it's same thing with escape rooms, right? Where it's like when you play an escape room and something breaks right off the bat, or something, you do something right and it doesn't open and they're like, oh, it's not working, like, oh, we'll come in and manually do it. It ruins the rest of the experience because now you're like, am I just dumb or is this broken? And so we need people to have trust. Most of the time with these adventures, the player has some type of tip off or there's something that happens earlier, because I learned that lesson of like, hey, they were supposed to start and they haven't gotten out of bed because they just didn't know they were doing anything today because their calendar was clear. And so usually what'll happen is they'll get something a week or 2 or 3 prior in fun ways, something fun delivered, wax sealed envelope opulence that gets them excited. And then it allows us, it'll give my client some plausible deniability because it's like, oh, they're with the client and something happened. Or they're like, the client who hired me is at work and they're at the grocery store and someone comes up and gives them a wax sealed envelope that tells them like, you need to be ready on this day. Usually setting some expectations. You're gonna be walking a little bit like all the things that you would think about if you were thrust upon this day. Like, wait, what about my cats? And you're like, no, we'll have some, like your cats will be fed. You'll be fine. Like, don't worry about this. This will be set. Everything's paid for. Like those little things to make sure that when the day rolls around, they're excited versus just like completely surprised by it.
It sounds like you think of literally everything. I wouldn't even think about feeding somebody else's cats because you've stolen them for the day.
And a lot of it's just learning, you know, like I have one example that I use a lot. It was the final adventure I did before I went full time with this. It was true. Like I was like, oh no. And the whole thing was adventure number 17. I think it was called the Margarita Madness. So you can see where this is going already. Everybody knew is in Southern California, margaritas would be involved. The whole crux of it was this woman was sent from place to place to place to place. And at every single place, a friend was waiting. The friend got her a margarita. They figured out where the next friend was and they went together and kind of snowballed, right? More and more people adding on. This was like way early on. And so in order to keep the cost down, they were like, we'll just have each friend individually pay for the margaritas instead of me talking with the bar, putting a card down, prepaying for everything, which is now something I kind of insist on. And so they get to the third bar and I get a text from kind of my one inside friend and they're like, hey, they're not letting us into the bar. I was like, why wouldn't they let you into the bar? It's like a Saturday in San Diego. And they're like, well, we're all military and we brought our military IDs and didn't bring our state IDs. And I was like, you guys are at a drinking themed adventure and you wouldn't think that you would need to bring your state IDs. And the real answer is like, when you're in San Diego, there's so many military, 9 out of 10 times, you're fine. Bring your military IDs because like it kind of works, right? But if it gets super busy in the bars and they need to turn people away, that's where the cutoff is. And so it's just one of those things now where it's like, okay, it goes without saying, like, please bring your ID. Like you're drinking, you know, you're drinking. I shouldn't have to tell you to bring your ID, but here we are. So it's those types of things have happened and trying to make sure that there's a contingency for everything. The biggest issue is people falling behind. That's the problem I run into the most that I'm kind of already prepared for. And it's a really easy fix where it's like, I'll have 10 stops, but they get to stop number like 7 or 8. And there's somebody that they interact with to get an envelope. And that person has an envelope A and an envelope B. And the envelope A sends them to this statue where they're going to decode a message using an Ottendorf cipher using the plaque that then sends them to a restaurant. And envelope B just sends them to the restaurant. And so it's a way for me to like chop off an extra 30 minutes of time and get them right back on track. Slowing teams down isn't really a big deal because you're just like, hey, actor, you're going to need to make a meal out of this conversation. Hey, friend that's an inside agent, you're going to need to have to stop and go to the bathroom, right? Like there's lots of fun ways to, like easy ways to slow them down, but speeding them back up is really, really difficult if you haven't prepared for it.
That's fair. I think people are generally really bad at timekeeping, much like ourselves getting through questions.
Yes, sorry about that.
The perfect example.
Oh.
But no, I 100% get that. Like the whole point, as you mentioned at the start, is making this seamless. And it is only by figuring out what all of the possible things that could make it not seamless are and then making them seamless as well.
Yeah. Same thing with Magic. It's really just like it's right there with Magic where you just put a lot of effort into trying to make the person that you're showing it to just go, wow. And it doesn't matter what anything happens in the background as long as that's okay on the front end.
Exactly. If you get from A to B and there's a wow moment at the end, whether you paid someone or whether you launched a card across the room or knocked them out, I mean, it all works.
So what has been your favorite piece of an experience that you've ever created and you will constantly talk about it at every opportunity?
I did a marriage proposal for 2 gentlemen in Barcelona where 3 or 4 days before the proposal was supposed to happen, we found out that his boyfriend, my client's boyfriend, was also planning on proposing to him. And so through one very stressed out friend that was with them on this vacation, that was basically a birthday vacation, we did the whole adventure around Barcelona. One of my MOs and my recommendations with proposals is to split up the proposer and the proposee. And that kind of allows like the proposer can like go back to the hotel and get changed and get the ring and like collect their thoughts and like they get to have this. And then they're at the finish line and they have this big grin like it was me all along. And I really like that because I like the proposee being brought to the proposer, because I mean, what are you going to talk about for like the 30 seconds before it's supposed to happen? Everybody knows it's going to happen, right? The energy's weird, like, oh, let's talk about the weather, right? Like it allows that, like everybody gets their own solitary thoughts collected by themselves before we do this. But when we split them up, we let the proposee know that no matter what happens with this, the Airbnb will be set up with everything for his proposal. And so the proposal happens. He says yes. They go to dinner. We go break into their Airbnb, extend the photographer and the team. We set up just like the fake votive candles, had a big, like, he wanted real candles. Like, nope, we do fake candles. It's real candles. Never work out the way you think it is. Set up all the photos of them, had the photographer, had the ring, and then they came back and had another proposal. So I managed to plan 2 separate proposals that neither of them saw coming 3 hours from one another. And it was awesome.
Oh, well done. That's so sweet.
Like, have you ever had a situation in which 10 minutes into the adventure, they've gone, you're not going to propose, are you? Is that where this is going?
Actually, ask that question. Whenever I have somebody that hires me, that's like after the first question of like, hey, is there a chance they'd say no? The next question is, you know, how are they going to react? Because like they're going to know. I am very much team like, everybody should know the proposal is going to happen. The proposal should not be that you're proposing. It should be how you're proposing. But then I am also 10 out of 10 times, I will argue this to the day I die. And yes, there's people, you know, the proposal should be for the person who's getting proposed to, right? If I ever end up, you know, getting engaged, proposed to, a lot of people are like, how are you going to propose? I'm going to propose however the hell they want to be proposed to. If they're the type of person that want to like roll out of bed and I'm there, like that's how it's going to be done, right? This is an act of extreme thoughtfulness. So I want to ask and make sure like, hey, is this the type of person who's going to turn and be like, are you proposing to me? And if so, the answer is just wink and be like, you'll see. You know, like at this point, it becomes a new game. It's not the surprise. I don't think it's worth sacrificing the niceness of the proposal for a surprise where it's like, wow, I look like crap. I feel like crap. I'm tired. And there's somebody taking my picture, but I'm surprised. Where it's like, I'd rather have the surprise be like, hey, when this thing kicks off, that's when the surprise is. Because now the proposee gets a little bit of ownership over their proposal. So they can make sure, and I learned this early on, I was like, hey, why is the limo pulling over at that like CVS pharmacy? Because she was going in to get waterproof mascara because she knew she was going to cry. And so now it's one of those where it's like, we can factor that in where it's like, you did this whole day, but I have raccoon eyes because my mascara is running all over the place because I didn't know this was going to happen. And so usually with a proposal, there's like a makeup artist or a chance for them to touch up somewhere. The surprise is that first envelope that drops. And then everything else is kind of like Star Wars Episode 3, where you're like, I know it's going to happen. I just want to see how it does.
Yeah, it's almost like teasing towards what's coming.
Yep.
But again, it's the
so
adventure,
sweet.
not the outcome that is the
Yes.
most sort of the best part of it.
I'm more surprised that by the sounds of it, Chris, you haven't had to propose yet.
Well, and this might be too much. I was talking to my mom about this somewhat recently. So everybody has 3 places in their life, right? You have the first place, which is usually your home. You have the second place, which is usually your work that you went to. And you had the third place, which historically was like church. And then it was like bars, right? Or like a place that you go regularly. And that's where you meet people, right? You don't meet people at home, but you meet people at work and you meet people at the third place. I did not have a third place. I did not have a second place. And for a while, I didn't have a first place because I didn't have a home. There have been 2 separate times where I've traveled so much, I've technically been homeless. I just put everything in storage because I was just bouncing from one to the next, As you can imagine, that is not super conducive to forming a meaningful relationship. You know, if I'm dating somebody who's just like working in HR in an office Monday through Friday, who gets 2 weeks of vacation, because in America, they don't give anybody vacation ever. Like that makes it really, really hard to be like, all right, cool, I'll see you in a month and a half. Like that's not going to work. So I also really like my solitude. I enjoy it. And I've also always been a little, not nervous about proposing, but it's like, man, you're betting somebody half your stuff that you're going to stay with them forever. And so it's, it is definitely very right for a lot of people. But my parents were also very much like, hey, Chris, save yourself the first divorce and just get married later. And I am very okay with that. And if I do end up, getting hitched and proposing, I would hope the person that I'm proposing to is somebody that would want this, because like, why are you dating me if you're not into this kind of stuff? Like, you talk about the unfair advantage in business. Like, my unfair advantage in relationships is I can fly you all over the world with me, and I can plan some elaborate surprises. So if you don't like travel and you don't like surprises, like, we probably shouldn't be together. So yeah.
I mean, you've heard it here, ladies. You will get an absolute catch by the sounds of it.
This podcast just turned into a dating platform. Is that what's happening?
World's okayest partner, right? I feel like I'm like, my business is amazing. You would love it. You'll love it. But like, behind the scenes, once again, not perfect. Nothing's perfect. I am not perfect. My business is not perfect.
I mean, this is your dating pool, Chris, I'm afraid. Listeners?
Oh, is that what this is? A surprise dating show? We're now bringing on the new contestants.
Actually, ready for the call. Let's get this person in here. Imagine. This was all big one constructed adventure on our part, and somebody's been wanting to talk to you for a long time.
You're going to have to go to downtown LA.
I would rather die than go into downtown LA. I would like to. It's been so long since I've been surprised that like that would be pretty amazing. I just like I don't get surprised anymore, mostly because like, I don't know, someone's got to know my schedule. And so it's really hard to know any given time where I'm going to be or what I'm going to have or what I'm going to be doing. So
yeah, your schedule does not sound particularly straight and narrow.
It's a puzzle in itself.
Well, thank you for fitting us into this puzzle.
Oh yeah, this has been such a fun conversation.
Is there anywhere in the world that you've not already created an adventure in that you'd love to go to, and why?
Oh man, I mean, you go into Western Europe and you throw a rock and like I'll hit like 30 places that I'd love to go do an adventure. I'd love to do one in Prague. I'm surprised I haven't done one in London yet. London's rad. Your public transportation system is so unbelievably good compared to everything.
Really? If you ask anyone in the UK, it is the complete flip side to that story.
Oh, the tube?
Yeah.
Oh, the
train
tube
cancellations.
Oh my God.
Buses not turning up on
First of all,
time.
you have trains, which is not the case for every city in the US except for New York and like kind of Boston. Everywhere else, you have to have a car, especially in Southern California. So just having the tube allows people to get places. I don't know if you've been to New York, but the tube versus the subway in New York is like night and day, where the subway is a little bit of like a escape from New York, like hellscape. There's a lot of people, and you're like, man, I really hope they don't talk to me. And it smells like pee, and it's not bad. Trust me, I love the New York subway. I think it's great, but the tube just feels so much nicer. And Mind the Gap, oh, it was great. So London would be one. I would love to do one in, honestly, like Vienna, Austria. I think doing something in Southeast Asia, like island hopping, could be really cool. Popping along there, Japan. Understandably, I kind of just like want to do one in a lot of countries. Most countries in Europe, I would love to. I thought about like moving there for 2-3 years and only taking European clients and doing things in Amsterdam. Oh, Amsterdam would be amazing.
Oh, that would be easy to do in Amsterdam, or even Rotterdam.
Yeah, so many places in Europe could be really cool. I've done a couple in Paris. Paris are always great. Barcelona is my favorite city in the world, and so anytime going back to Barcelona would be amazing too. But just lots of cool things.
I shall have to add Barcelona to the list of holiday destinations.
Yeah, have really good games.
Yes, they have amazing games. Cerveceria and Cyber City are like two of the big ones for people like me that don't like being scared. There's also, just before you go, let me know and I'll send you to two speakeasies in a restaurant that are like amazing. Love them.
Perfect. It's going on the list of destinations to travel to.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to when you first started the business and give yourself some advice to change how you did something, what would it be?
Charge more early on. It took me way too long to be charging this amount. I had this weird thing with money where I'm like, I shouldn't be charging very much. And now I'm like evangelical about like, hey, if you are doing puzzle design, you need to be charging a much higher hourly rate. Like if somebody's telling you that you charge too much, you're now charging the right amount. right? You will find out when you're charging too much when people are hiring you, but you just need to keep raising your prices. You need to take your emotion out of it, and you need to treat it like supply and demand, where I raise my prices as I am booked out because I can't take it anyway. Like, I can't take this business anyway. And there's also kind of a Birkin bag method of like, people always want what they can't have, right? You want something that's unavailable. So there's a little bit of psychology with that. But it's also just like, my time is very valuable to me, as your time should be valuable to you. And you should charge if you're going to do this. So that'd be the first one. Saved myself like 2 or 3 years of like struggling financially. And the other one was like, oh my God, my email is so long. Like, this at constructedadventures.com, it's way too many syllables. I'm sure I've lost a ton of business by not shortening that to like, cadventure.com or something. That would probably be bad too, because the letter C, or like SEE or something. But putting more thought into what the email address should be, because the email is so long that I'm sure I've lost people that have been like constructive with an IVE, like construct adventure, all that is just.
We understand that as a as
ESCAPUZZLED
ESCAPUZZLED.
It still flows, and you can like take a crack at it, but like,
yeah, tons of people are like escape puzzled, escape puzzled, like yeah.
Like, we think we're being clever with this, but we're really just like hamstringing ourselves.
100%.
Yeah. From that business standpoint, absolutely. Would have started some things earlier, would have started the Reddit and Discord communities earlier. It's tricky now because I always have something to do, or somebody that wants to chat with me, and it gets stressful. But I really like building these communities because both from a business standpoint, it's really helpful. The people in the Discord that are posting the most help are the people that I bring in and then pay to write blog posts and to help me design adventures and things. And so it's really helpful to be like, hey guys, I'm doing this cool thing. Here's what it is. I've got 20 hours. Like, I'll pay you $25 an hour. I probably need to raise that pretty soon, because
I need to have a look in your Discord. I need to search deeper in your Discord. I've been looking at all the cool ideas. I've not been looking at the opportunities.
Yeah, so I have this group called the Agency, the Constructed Adventures Agency. There's probably like 30 or 40 people in. It is invite only. It is for people on the subreddit who are posting recaps of events that they have done and helping give ideas. And basically, kind of like, it started off as a way to just reward the most active members without having to do anything other than like give them a fun code name. But everybody gets a code name. My code name is the Architect, which started as a joke, and now it's on my business card. But there's the Confounder, there's the Maestro, there's the Teacher, there's the Spaceman, there's the Maven. There's like so many people. If you go on Discord, you'll see they all have the tags and they're in red. We have our own like fun, super secret channel where A, I'll pay $75 if they want to write blog posts. And then B, I'll pay $25 an hour for them to help me with both puzzle and game design. Whenever I do big group games and I need a digital scorekeeper, there's 1 or 2 people that I'll bring in and they'll help me with work on Canva with the design and things. And it's like, yeah, just tell me your hours and I'll just send you money over and bill a client. It's really great in 2 parts. One, it allows me to get some bandwidth back in my life where it's like, I really don't want to be working on this like Canva thing. Can I just have somebody go make it beautiful? But then B, it allows me to pay creative people the money that they should be being paid. Like $25 an hour is pretty good, right? It was way better when I first started paying $25 an hour. As inflation, thankfully is kind of quelled, but inflation will always exist, right? Prices always rise. But it's pretty good to be paid $25 an hour to do like brainstorming and some puzzle design and some fun work if you've never been paid for that work. And it's very much like the same thing of barreling through. We'll bring in a new person in the agency. They don't have to do any of this. They just want a fancy code name and to hang out. They can do that. It's opt-in as you will. Hi, I'm doing this big corporate event. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'd love 2 people helping me with this, 3 on this, 2 on this, 5 on this. I have a consultation client that needs this custom puzzle built. Build it. Tell me how much I owe you. And so it's a really cool way to throw money at people and trying to help establish that this is an industry that deserves to be paid. My twin brother is he's an artist. He's a designer for Disney, and he's extremely good. But as every creative person has experienced at some point in time, they've heard the person of like, you're going to do this for exposure, or like, you should do this because it's fun not to get paid, where the answer is, and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on your podcast.
Go wild.
Am I? The answer is go fuck yourself. what I do is very valuable and you will be compensated because somebody else already compensates me. So why would I do this for free for you when Chris is going to pay me $25 an hour to help me with these different projects? So that's kind of my big answer to that. It can be tricky because, like, if you're first starting off, like, it's hard to be able to pay people. So sometimes there is that, like, please, can you just help me? But if some business is reaching out to have me design some promotional thing, like, that business has plenty of money to be able to pay for this. If they're doing promotions, 30% of their budget should be in advertising. And if their budget is $1 million, that is a lot of money that can go toward advertising, that can go toward an alternate reality game or some type of like promotional bar crawl event or something like that.
And you always get what you pay for. It's the same in the Magic community, like as working magicians. If you pay low, you get low. If you pay high, you get the best of the best.
Yeah, when I go into a new city and I'm like, here's the deal, actors, I need you to come and you're going to screw with some people and it's going to be really fun. I pride myself on being very fun to work for because I care a lot, but I don't care so much that I'm going to be like screaming at people. Like we've all worked with that person who's just like a nightmare where it's like, you couldn't pay me all the money in the world to work with them again. But it's like, I'm going to pay you pretty well. I'm going to reimburse you for mileage. I'm going to make sure that like everybody has fun and everybody gets paid. And the only person that doesn't have fun is me because the whole event's running through me. And that's my job, right? Like with every event, there always has to be somebody who's just not having any fun. It's why when you get married, you hire a wedding planner. So when your drunk uncle is sauntering up to the mic for a very politically racy impromptu speech, they can tackle him and you don't have to vault the sweetheart table and do it yourself.
100% fully agree. I mean, you get paid handsomely to deal with that stress. So it's worth it all in the end.
I make sure of that. Yeah, but I want to make sure that everybody's compensated. And when I'm paying, hey, I'm going to pay you a bunch of money, I'm going to overpay, I don't have any issue finding help that's super excited about it. And then whenever I come back the next time, I'm like, hey, I'm back. And they're like, put me in, coach. I'll take the day off of work. I had plans. My brother's getting married, but I'd rather do this, like that's a joke.
Yeah, when you're willing to pay somebody their worth, you get rewarded with enthusiasm and you get rewarded with the best work they're going to give.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just be nice and pay people. Like, it's not that hard.
Speaking of money, if you had an unlimited budget to create an experience for yourself or for a client or a family or a friend, what would you create?
So I've grappled with this a lot. I have been slowly, very, very slowly building a worldwide treasure hunt. I wanted to do something kind of like Forest Fen, but actually good. Forest Fen's treasure hunt, I have a lot of opinions on. But the more I think about the Forest Fen treasure hunt, the more it's like, it's kind of the only way to do it. The problem that you run into with worldwide treasure hunts, especially when there's any type of cash prize, is you have like Team Palindrome come in and just like dumpster everybody, and you've lost sight of that this is supposed to be as fun for as many people as possible. And so there's ways to fix it. The other problem is, like, if I did a worldwide treasure hunt, you'd have to be affluent to be able to do it because you're traveling all over the world. So it might be more of a worldwide treasure hunt with some type of like token that you win that doesn't have a monetary value, but it's like the ultimate prize, right? It's like you get these billionaires that are like going into space because like, I don't know, I can do whatever else I want. So this would be a fun thing for, it's like, hey, if you want to, you go through this, and once I know that you've beaten it, you will get this thing that will have value, but mostly the value will be in the fact that you have it, right? It's like a medal or a ribbon or a trophy or something. But I would love to build an evergreen worldwide treasure hunt that would involve going to every city that I've ever built an adventure in before.
That sounds phenomenal.
I've slowly worked on it. I have some just awesome ideas. The one that I really, really want to do, which I've never actually talked about before, so I guess this would be a good time to do it.
Exclusive.
Deep late, yeah, exclusive. I have no tattoos, zero ink. Actually, not a huge fan of needles. I really love the idea of the halfway point of the adventure is literally like an entire, like I would get, if I can get a tattoo, I'm going big or going none, right? I'd get probably an entire leg sleeve, all up and down like my legs. So it's like covered and normal, whatever. But I love the idea of having like this very epic like beach seascape with all of this stuff going on my leg, and somewhere buried in there is like the instructions to the next phase, right? A worldwide treasure hunt would be split up into multiple phases where it would literally end with where the next city and spot in the city begins, right? So it could kind of break into pieces. But I love this idea because then I could know how many teams have like made it halfway through, because it's like you have to schedule time with me, which might end up being a bad idea. Who knows? Where like you will leave your phones in the other room, but you have 30 minutes to just like stare at my leg. That would be the coolest thing ever, which might get me in trouble, but it's like I would have to make sure there's no photos of this anywhere online, right? Like that's the problem, is like once one photo got, like the whole idea would be ruined. But I just think that would be really, really cool, where like the next piece of this is physically on me. So you would have to come and like we'd have a conversation, and like I think that'd be really cool. So if I had unlimited money and could do whatever I want, worldwide treasure hunt, full leg sleeve. And then if I have unlimited money, I don't have to work. And so people could just come book time with me and, you know, check out my leg. Which sounds a lot weirder with that specific like sound clip.
I have thought so many times about getting a magic trick tattoo, but never a puzzle related tattoo. But that is a very cool idea.
Yeah.
When I left my old job, I was like, oh, I'm gonna get that key. Like, do you know the key that people hold and they get out the room? I was like, I'm gonna get that tattooed. And then I actually booked a tattoo shop, and instead I got like a little slutty ghost on my leg. So backed out of it.
You could get like a slutty ghost like holding the key, you know, like you just do a little teeny tiny on there, you know?
There is like an option to do that, and I was gonna do it, but I kind of backed out. And to be fair, that was like my last Halloween costume in my old job, so I feel like it's got a little connection.
Well, throwback anyway.
Yeah,
tattoos are tricky, right? I was a drummer all of my life, and I was on drumline, and I was like, I'm gonna get drumsticks tattooed. I haven't drummed for years, and so it's like, I don't know if I really want to, like, you know, getting married, right? Like things change.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person that jumps from hobby to hobby like every week. So if I got a tattoo of every hobby that I've ever done, it would not be okay.
A really cool sleeve, though.
Yeah.
It would be a really cool sleeve of really random things. Like juggling, solving Rubik's Cube, riding bikes, unicycles. Like it would just be absolute carnage.
That being said, though, like, you know, it's all those things made you who you are. So it still has a piece to it, right? My life as a drummer, I actually use that. This is we can close. I don't know if you have any other questions. We can close with this thing that I talk about, where you guys, there is no marching band really in Europe. I feel like marching band is a very extremely American thing, with like college American football.
We have like military bands for the most part, but marching bands not as much.
I was on drumline, and I was never the best drummer. I was good. I was very good, but I wasn't the best. It was university, so it was like pretty top tier, you know, percussionist. And but I was very flashy. I could do a lot of the stick juggling and the tricks and all of those things. And one time we did homecoming, which is where all the alumni come back, and you know, it's a big thing. They split the drumline into three, and the three best drummers would go to University Boulevard, which is where like it was the most fun, right? Everybody's drunk to all the bars, all that. And so we had our handlers that were walking with us, and they were these drunk students, and they were like, do a drum battle, because the movie Drumline had come out back in like 2000 whatever, and they did drum battles. And I turned to one of my best friends, who I'm still really good friends with, and we talk about this all the time, and I was like, Adam, he was pound for pound the best drummer. Like from a drumming standpoint, his chops, his technique, everything he could do was just better. So I start and I play some fun little lick, and like, ooh, then he plays something which is definitely better, and I play something, and then he plays the most insane percussion thing, hemiolas and flams and all this stuff, and then I just did like eighth notes and just juggled the sticks, and everyone's like, oh, he wins, oh, that guy wins, oh, and it's like to the 0.001% of people that are drummers, like Adam won. He played the most insane thing that I could never play. But to the 99.9% of people that don't, I won. And I say that with a lot of designers and puzzle designers, because a lot of puzzle designers are they want very badly to show off how clever they are. And they lose sight of the thoughtfulness, of the importance of the players have to enjoy this and win the game. It doesn't matter how complex and clever your puzzles are. If the player can't solve it, you have lost the game, right? And so I try to bring that back, where we've seen so many things like UV ink, right? A million times, to where it's like it's old hat for us. But to 99.9% of the people, namely a lot of the people that are paying you money, UV light in an Egyptian tomb is going to blow their freaking minds. And so it's hard to sometimes battle that, where it's like we're constantly trying to be better and create more complex stuff, but there's just a certain level of like you don't need to, or you have to go in a different route. And it's not about the complexity of the puzzle, it's about the thoughtfulness of the experience. And so you'll see some of those top escape rooms are not necessarily challenging, but you will never forget some of those moments that you have because they put that thought more into like the entire experience and not just like how brutal of a puzzle can I create.
100%. If that's the one takeaway from today, customer experience over everything.
Over everything.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. One super quick last question. What are your plans for the futures? Can you give us any teasers, anything coming up?
There's something I can't really talk about. I'm doing something with a celebrity. That's going to be really fun.
Very cool.
Traveling to some cool places. I'm trying to think of my next couple months. It's going to Massachusetts, doing one in Newport Beach, doing one in San Francisco, then doing another one in San Francisco, then doing another one in San Francisco. So I just have, I have a lot of events. We have already started working on the Grand Hunt, which is our digital puzzle hunt.
I did see that on your Instagram.
Yes. Yeah, so we just concluded the other one and we've begun the next one. That's very much from the agency, but really it's just traveling, building events, trying to do cool things for cool people, and trying to build this community as well.
So where can our listeners find you online? Where can we see and keep up to date with all of the incredible things that you're doing around the world?
Yes. So simply put, if you just Google Constructed Adventures, that's constructed past tense adventures plural, to go back to our email or our email address. That's the best way to go about it. I'll send you constructedadventures.com/links that you can link to all the things. And that's basically, it sends out, I have a subreddit that's very active, a Discord channel that's very active. I have an Instagram that's like kind of active. I have a TikTok that I posted 2 videos on, but I'm desperately trying to do more if I ever get some time again. And so I'm just kind of all over the place on all the things. And if you want me to build an adventure, I can do it. If you need me to consult so you can build something, or if you're like an escape room that has a company that wants you to do like a team builder or something like that, or you want to talk about the do's and don'ts of proposals and escape rooms, by all means, reach out. I'm always happy to talk.
Perfect. Everyone deserves an amazing, memorable day. And if they can do that through you, even better.
Yes.
Harry, please take notes. I don't want to be proposed to. However, I do
think
want an
your
adventure
husband
day.
would be very annoyed.
And I'm sure you would be, but
I have done redo proposals.
oh, that's so sweet. I know. Every now and again, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just propose to my husband and give him the magic that he gave me. But then I remember that's not how things work.
Thanks a lot. Gender roles. You can always do something else for him, though. There's always a reason.
Absolutely. He'll
There's
turn 30
birthdays,
soon.
there's celebrations.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for fitting us into what sounds like an absolute hell of a jigsaw puzzle of your schedule. As always, if you guys listening have enjoyed it, please obviously check out Chris's incredible work. And if you did enjoy it, please leave us a review. Let us know that you enjoyed it. Gratification is always welcome here at the ESCAPUZZLED podcast.
Review. Don't just ask for a review. 5-star
always
reviews. I'm so
5-star.
I interrupted you. If you don't like it, email us and we'll fix it.
As always, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.